My sister dumped red wine down my airline uniform in a VIP lounge, and her pilot fiancé ended the engagement before the stains even dried. That moment came later. Before that, I was just the invisible one. In my family, I existed in the negative space. I was useful when something broke, when money ran short, when a favor was needed. Otherwise, I was a punchline. My parents called it teasing. My sister called it honesty. I called it survival and learned to keep quiet. My name is Evan Carter. I work airport operations, ground side, the people who keep airplanes moving when weather collapses, maintenance logs do not add up, or someone quietly realizes a bad decision is about to turn catastrophic. It is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is the kind of work you do best when nobody knows your name. My parents never asked what that meant. They told people I worked at the airport the same way you say someone works at the mall. My sister Claire refined it. She called me baggage boy, clipboard guy, the one who points at cones and waves planes around like toys. She was engaged to a pilot now, a real one, according to her. One-iform, wings, stories that landed cleanly at dinner parties. His name was Michael, and from the first night I met him, I understood my role had been downgraded from background furniture to active entertainment. Evan does the ground stuff, Claire told people, smiling brightly. You know, delays, lost luggage, that kind of thing. I did not correct her. I never did. Silence was part of the job. You do not explain processes that rely on discretion. You do not argue with people who want a story, not the truth. And you do not waste energy defending work that only matters when it fails. Claire, however, was not satisfied with small jokes. She needed an audience. The requests started blending into the insults. My father called about a car repair, transmission issues. He needed $4,600 fast. I sent it that night. 2 weeks later, Claire posted photos from a rooftop restaurant. Champagne? A view of the runway behind her. Caption: When your man spoils you. I stared at my phone longer than I should have, then locked it and went back to work. The engagement celebration invite arrived in early May, a private event at an airport lounge restaurant, floor-to-ceiling glass, planes lifting off in the background. Claire loved symbolism. The invitation listed my name. One seat, no plus one. I texted her. I was bringing Emily. No random girlfriends, she replied. This is family and flight crew only. Emily read the message and handed my phone back without comment. She did not raise her voice. She never did. She just looked at me and said, "That tells you everything you need to know." The night of the event, I put on my uniform and checked my pockets out of habit. Badge, wallet, phone. In the inner breast pocket, heavier than it looked, a small metal coin pressed against my chest. I had meant to leave it at home. I had forgotten. I stood in my apartment doorway for a moment longer than necessary. I knew Claire had prepared a toast. I knew she had practiced it. I knew I was part of the script. I went anyway. Because sometimes the only way out of a role is to let the scene play to the end. The lounge restaurant sat above the concourse, like it belonged to a different species of traveler. Soft lighting, leather chairs, a wall of glass that made the runway look like a private movie set. Outside, a narrow-body jet rolled past at a slow taxi, strobes pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside, my sister had arranged the room so everyone could see her. A hostess checked the list at the door. Carter party, she said, bright and practiced. You are down for one. Make it two, I answered. Her eyes flicked up to my uniform, then to the second person behind me. Emily stood steady in a simple black dress and flat shoes, hair pinned back the way she wore it when she worked night shifts. She did not look like someone who was here to beg for approval. The hostess hesitated. I am paying for my own dinner, I said. Add her. Emily did not touch my arm. She did not squeeze my hand. She just waited, calm as a closed door. The hostess glanced toward the private room and then back at me, reading the tone in my voice. All right, she said, and wrote two quick marks on the reservation sheet. Claire was already inside. I saw her through the doorway, standing near the long table like a bride at a rehearsal dinner. White dress, hair curled, a thin gold necklace that caught the light every time she tilted her chin. Michael stood beside her, clean uniform, wings sharp on his chest. He looked the way Claire wanted him to look, a walking promise, a man who made other people straighten their backs without realizing it. My parents were there too, Susan and Thomas Carter, seated at the center like they had been crowned. My mother spotted me first. Her face lifted with something that could have been relief, then hardened when she noticed Emily. Claire noticed a second later. She did not walk over. She did not greet me. She did not say Emily's name. She just smiled wider, the way people smile when they have already decided you are an obstacle and not a person. Two chairs had been placed at the far end of the room, half hidden behind a column. My seat, my corner. I did not go there. I guided Emily toward the middle of the table, pulled out two chairs that were clearly meant for somebody else, and sat down like I belonged. Emily sat beside me without a flicker of apology. The room shifted around us. Forks paused. Voices went soft for a beat. My father cleared his throat, a small sound that carried the weight of years. He gave me a look that said, "Do not make this difficult." I gave him one back that said, "I am done being convenient." Conversation restarted in fragments. Michael's friends talked about simulator runs and weather holds like it was sports. Claire laughed too loud at everything Michael said. She had that look on her face I had seen since we were kids, the one she got when she was in front of people and could feel their attention like warm sunlight. I listened, nodded when spoken to, and kept my hands flat on the table. The server poured wine. Claire lifted her glass first, eager, and my mother followed. I declined. The server glanced at me as if waiting for a reason. "Working tomorrow," I said. Claire heard me and snorted. "Evan always says that," she called down the table. "He is always working, or pretending." A few people laughed politely. One man in a crisp button-down leaned toward me. "What do you do exactly?" he asked, trying to be friendly. I opened my mouth, searching for a safe sentence, and Claire slid right over it like a knife. "He does ground stuff," she said. "Like he moves cones around and tells people their flights are delayed. Very important." Michael's eyes flicked to her, quick and sharp. Something in his expression tightened, then smoothed out again. I did not correct her. I could have said I coordinated operational holds, investigated irregularities, flagged unsafe dispatch pressure when people wanted to cut corners. I could have said I had spent long nights watching maintenance entries and crew scheduling patterns until they formed a picture that no one else wanted to see. None of that would have landed. To them, I was still the kid who stayed quiet at the dinner table, still the one my sister could poke until a laugh fell out of somebody. The first course came out, appetizers arranged like art. Emily ate slowly, eyes moving around the room the way she did in an emergency department, scanning without staring, seeing everything. Halfway through the meal, Claire stood and tapped her spoon against her glass. The sound cut through the private room like a signal. Conversations stopped. Phones tilted upward. Someone whispered, "Here we go." Claire was glowing. "Thank you all for coming," she said, voice sweet, trained for attention. "This has been the best year of my life. I met the love of my life, my hero, Captain Michael Reeves." Michael rose slightly from his chair, one hand on the backrest, and nodded as people clapped. Claire waited for the applause to swell, then continued. "You all know how much Michael means to me. He represents everything I admire. Discipline, service, bravery." Her eyes tracked the room like she was collecting reactions. "And I want to thank my family," she said, letting the word hang. "My parents, who have always supported me." My mother touched her chest with her fingertips, already emotional, and, Claire added, pausing as if she had saved her favorite line, "My brother Evan." Every head turned toward me. I did not smile. I did not look down. I just met the attention the way you meet a gust of wind when you have no choice. Claire's grin widened. "Evan managed to take time away from his very serious airport job," she said, leaning into the joke, "to be here tonight, which is impressive, because he is always so busy with paperwork and cones." A few people chuckled. A couple laughed harder, the way people do when they are relieved the target is not them. Claire lifted her glass toward me like a toast. I know it must be hard for Evan, she said, voice warm with cruelty, to sit next to someone who does real aviation work, someone who actually flies the plane instead of, you know, pushing carts. Emily's posture did not change. Her eyes shifted to mine, a quiet question. Are you going to let this keep happening? Michael's face had gone still. Not angry. Not yet. Just focused, like a pilot listening to a subtle change in engine tone. Claire did not notice. She was riding her own momentum. But it is good he is here, she continued. Every family needs someone behind the scenes, someone to do the boring parts. Right, Evan? A hush settled, a thin, uncomfortable silence where the laughter had been. My father gave a small, nervous chuckle as if he could patch the moment with sound. My mother's lips tightened, warning me without words. Claire tilted her head, waiting for me to play my role. I set my napkin down. The coin in my inner pocket pressed against my chest like a reminder I did not ask for. I pushed my chair back and stood. The room held its breath. Stop, I said, not loud, not dramatic. Just clear. I am leaving. Claire's smile snapped. Evan, do not. Michael rose at the same time I did. His chair scraped the floor. It was a small sound, but it carried authority. He turned his head toward Claire, and his voice dropped low enough to cut. Claire, he said, do not. The room froze on that sentence. Because nobody expected the hero she was worshiping to draw the line against her. Claire blinked, stunned. It is a joke, she said quickly. He does not care. Michael did not look at her. He looked at me. His eyes held something uncomfortable and honest. Then he spoke, quietly, like a warning meant for both of us. If you walk out, I walk out, he said. Claire's throat worked. Michael, you cannot embarrass me. I turned toward the door. Emily stood with me, already moving, calm as if we had rehearsed this. Behind us, my mother's voice rose sharp and strained. Evan, stop being dramatic. It is her night. I did not turn around. Claire's chair shoved back hard. Fine, she said louder now. Go. Leave. Just like you always do. Run back to your little airport job. Her footsteps came fast, angry, closing distance. Something in the air shifted. A pressure change before a storm. I reached the doorway, and then I heard glass moving too quickly. The sound of liquid, thrown with intent. I began to turn, too late. The wine hit me square in the chest. Cold first, sharp, then the weight of it soaking through fabric that had been pressed less than an hour earlier. Deep red spread across the pale blue of my uniform like a wound blooming in real time. For half a second, nobody moved. The glass Claire had thrown clattered against the wall behind me and shattered. A thin line of red ran down my sleeve and dripped onto the carpet, darkening it in slow, ugly drops. My first thought was not anger. It was relief. Because once someone crosses a line that publicly, there is no more pretending. Claire stood frozen, arms still half raised, eyes wide as if she had not expected her own body to obey her. I did not, she started, then stopped. Her mouth opened again, searching for a version of events that would save her. Michael had already moved. He stepped between us without thinking, hand out like he was blocking a physical threat. Are you out of your mind? He said, voice low but hard. What is wrong with you? She was leaving, Claire shot back, panic bleeding through the bravado. On my night, after everything I have done for him. For him? Michael repeated. You just threw a drink at a service worker in uniform. He is my brother, she snapped. He can take a joke. The room was silent enough to hear the hum of the refrigeration units behind the bar. I shifted my weight, stepping back. The movement pulled my jacket open. Something heavy slid inside the fabric, bumped once against the seam, then dropped. Metal struck tile. The sound was small, but it landed like a gunshot. The coin rolled away from me, spinning on its edge, catching the light as it went. It circled once, twice, then fell flat near Michael's shoe. Michael looked down. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost clinical. His breathing hitched, sharp, and controlled, like someone forcing themselves not to react. "Oh no," he murmured. Then, quieter, "No, no, no." Claire followed his gaze. "What is that?" she demanded. "Did he bring props now?" Michael did not answer her. He bent slowly and picked the coin up with 2 fingers, as careful as if it might bite him. He turned it once, thumb brushing over the etched insignia. His jaw tightened. "How long?" he asked, not looking at me. "I cannot talk about it," I said. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. One of his friends down the table leaned forward. "Wait," the man said. "Is that do not?" Michael said, sharp and absolute. "Briggs, shut up." The man leaned back immediately, face pale now, understanding blooming where curiosity had been. Michael straightened. When he looked at me again, it was not with doubt or confusion. It was with something close to reverence, mixed with a sickening kind of guilt. "I have seen this before," he said, carefully, aware of the room. "Not many people have." Claire laughed, high and brittle. "Michael, you are being ridiculous. It is just some airport token. He probably bought it online." Michael turned his head toward her. The look he gave her made my mother gasp. He stood at attention without thinking, spine straight, shoulders squared. His voice shifted into something formal, something trained. "Sir," he said, addressing me, "I owe you an apology." The room sucked in a collective breath. "For my behavior, for allowing you to be disrespected, and for not recognizing you sooner." He lowered the coin back into my palm. His hand shook. "Not here," he added quietly, "but I owe you one." Then he turned to Claire. "We are done," he said. The words were clean, final. Claire stared at him. "What?" she whispered. "Michael, you cannot be serious. It is just Evan. He has always been like this. He exaggerates. He plays victim. He is not a nobody," Michael said, voice rough now. "He has done more in a single shift than I may do in my entire career. And you turned him into a joke. You are choosing him over me?" She shrieked. "I am choosing not to marry someone who humiliates people to feel powerful," he said. "Someone who takes money from family and then assaults them in public." I did not assault him. "You threw a drink at a uniformed worker," Michael said. "That is assault." He looked around the room, meeting eyes one by one. "We are leaving." No one argued. His friends stood immediately, chairs pushed back in unison. They did not gawk. They did not whisper. They moved the way professionals move when a decision has been made. Michael paused at the doorway and looked back at me. "Thank you for your service," he said. "Real service." Then he was gone. The room erupted. Claire screamed. My mother cried. My father shouted about misunderstandings and family and fixing this right now. Phones came out. People started talking over each other, words piling up into noise. My mother grabbed my arm. "Evan, please. You cannot just leave. We need to explain." "No," I said, pulling free. "We do not." "You embarrassed her," she said, voice breaking. "You could have told him it was nothing, that your job is not really important." I stared at her. "My job is not important," I repeated. She faltered. "I did not mean, yes," I said. "You did." I turned and walked out. Emily followed without hesitation. The night air outside the terminal was cool and clean. Jets roared overhead, lifting into darkness. I stood there for a moment, wine drying stiff on my uniform, chest rising and falling as something old finally loosened its grip. Emily leaned against my car and looked at me. "Well," she said calmly, "that escalated." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. "Yes," I said, "it did." And for the first time, I knew there was no going back. The first story reached me before I made it home. It arrived as a voicemail from my father, left while Emily drove us away from the terminal. His voice sounded rehearsed, tight around the edges, like he was reading from a script he had already repeated to someone else. "Evan," he said, "your mother is very upset. What happened tonight was a misunderstanding. You overreacted. People are asking questions. You embarrassed your sister in front of Michael's colleagues. We need to get ahead of this. Get ahead of it. That was when I understood what came next. Families like mine did not apologize. They edited. By morning, the narrative had shape. By afternoon, it had momentum. Claire called from 3 different numbers. I did not answer. My mother sent texts that started with concern and ended with accusation. By evening, I heard from an aunt I barely spoke to asking if I was doing okay and whether I had stopped taking something. Emily read the messages over my shoulder, silent, clinical. They are not worried about you, she said finally. They are worried about control. I did not reply to anyone that night. The second day, my supervisor called. Not angry, careful, just checking in, he said. We had a call from a civilian asking about you. Family member. Wanted to know if you had been under stress lately. I closed my eyes. What did you say? I asked. That it was none of their business, he replied, and that if anyone showed up uninvited again, security would handle it. That was the moment the embarrassment ended and the war began. I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold and opened my laptop, not to vent, not to explain, to close doors. First, the money. I logged into my accounts and ended the automatic transfers I had set up years ago. The ones that sent money to my parents just in case. The ones that covered Claire when her emergencies mysteriously coincided with shopping weekends. I changed passwords. I added 2-factor authentication. I documented everything. Second, access. I emailed building management and added a note. No visitors without my approval. I sent a similar message to airport employee relations, brief and factual. If anyone claiming to be family appeared on site, they were not to be admitted. Third, the message. Emily sat across from me, legs folded beneath her, hands wrapped around her own mug. Write it like a report, she said. Facts, no emotion. Boundaries. So I did to Susan Carter, to Thomas Carter, to Claire Carter. Subject, future communication. I wrote that I would not be attending family events, that I would not be providing financial assistance, that I would not engage in phone calls, texts, or surprise visits. I wrote that any false statements about my mental health or professional conduct would be corrected publicly. I wrote that continued harassment would result in legal action. It was not long. It did not apologize. I read it twice. Emily read it once. Send it, she said. My mother responded within the hour. 6 paragraphs. No acknowledgement of the wine. No mention of the money. Only explanations. Context. How Claire had been under stress. How families say things they do not mean. How my reaction had hurt everyone. How forgiveness was what decent people did. Emily exhaled slowly. That is not an apology, she said. That is a justification wearing an apology costume. I archived it. The third day, Claire showed up at my building. I saw her through the lobby camera feed on my phone while I was still upstairs. She stood by the entrance, phone in hand, hair pulled back too tight, tapping her foot like the world owed her patience. I did not go down. She left a voicemail instead, her voice trembling between rage and fear. She said Michael would not answer her calls, that his colleagues had frozen her out, that people were calling her cruel. This is your fault, she said. You did this to me. I deleted it. That night, Emily and I ate takeout on the couch, the windows open to the sound of distant traffic. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders were not up around my ears. You know what a blacklist really is, she said, watching me. It is not punishment. It is consequence. You remove someone from the system because they are unsafe to operate with. I nodded. That was exactly it. The next attempt came from my father. He drove to my building without warning and demanded the concierge call me. I told them I was not home. When he called from the parking lot, I did not answer. You are acting like a child, his voicemail said. You cannot cut off your family like this. I blocked the number. Over the next week, the calls slowed. The texts stopped. The stories shifted. Without access to me, the narrative lost oxygen. Work was quiet, professional, unaffected. Emily moved some of her things into my place. She brought a box labeled Boundaries and stacked it neatly in the corner. What is in that? I asked. Empty space, she said. For things we are not letting in. I slept through the night for the first time since the engagement party. When I woke, there were no missed calls. The silence felt earned and permanent. Silence has weight. At first, it pressed on me the way altitude does when a plane climbs too fast. My body kept waiting for impact, for the next call, the next accusation disguised as concern. I kept my phone face down on the table, half expecting it to vibrate itself back into my life. It did not. Days passed, then weeks. Without the constant noise, I began to notice how tired I had been. Not the physical kind that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from bracing for disrespect, from measuring every word, from anticipating the moment someone you love would turn you into a joke. Emily noticed first. You are standing differently, she said one night as we cooked dinner, like you are not preparing to be shoved. I thought about that while stirring a pot of pasta sauce. The steam fogged my glasses, and for once, no one laughed at me for it. Work offered me a shift change, then a role expansion. Nothing dramatic, just quiet recognition, more responsibility, less explanation, the kind of trust that does not need applause. Emily accepted a new position at a trauma center closer to the airport. Better hours, a team that listened. We found a small place between our commutes. Nothing fancy, clean, bright, ours. The past tried one more time to claw back in late autumn. My uncle Frank called. My father had collapsed at work. Heart attack, serious, intensive care. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, feeling the old pull stretch tight again. Emily sat beside me. She did not tell me what to do. If you go, she said carefully, go for you, not to fix them. I went. I stood at the foot of my father's hospital bed and looked at a man who suddenly seemed much smaller than the voice that had filled my childhood. He woke long enough to see me. I am sorry, he whispered. I should have stopped it. I believed him. That did not mean I forgot. If you recover, I told him, things will be different. No money, no excuse, respect or nothing. He nodded, tears tracking down into his hair. I left before guilt could find its footing. My mother sent a letter weeks later, short, careful. It said she was proud of me. It did not ask for anything. I kept it. Claire never reached out again. In the spring, Emily and I bought a house, a small yard, a fence that marked where we ended and the rest of the world began. We planted tomatoes and basil and learned how to argue about paint colors without trying to win. One afternoon, an email landed in my inbox. From Michael, it was brief, professional. He said he shared my story with new pilots, not the details, just the lesson. Respect the unseen people, the ones who keep you alive without ever touching the controls. I read it once. Then again, Emily looked up from the garden. Good news? Yes, I said. Closure. She smiled and went back to the soil. Some people never see you for who you are. They only see what they can extract. When you stop providing access, they call it cruelty. I call it freedom. And for the first time in my life, I came home to a place where I did not have to earn the right to exist.